I am ready. Thank you.
Hello, my astrology family. This is Lada from astrolada.com here with one of the most loved astrologers, evolutionary astrologer Bryan Coulter, who basically broke the record. When we first introduced him, he got like 500 orders for his past life reading, and he's fantastic at that. It's you just like you're gifted to see people's past lifetimes, and you're even doing a webinar this Saturday, I think it is on the 16th, teaching people 4 or 5 hours how to read their past lifetimes from their chart. It's only $63 as far as I remember. And you're going to show us your method. But today we're here to talk about the chart of Kylie Jenner. We're going to talk about Donald Trump, but we said, okay, we don't want to get into hot water there. And we're going to look at her past lifetimes. Hi, Bryan.
Hi, Lada. Thank
Thank
you.
you for joining me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. It's a pleasure. And I admit I actually know more about Donald Trump than I do about Kylie Jenner, at least on a superficial level based on the internet. So, but I do know a lot about the journey of her soul now that I've looked at her birth chart, which is pretty exciting. So we'll be able to see how her current life circumstances in a lot of ways are reflected in her karma. And as Lada said, I'll be teaching a webinar this Saturday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. It's on sale. And where I'll be teaching my whole method. It's very polished. It's very step-by-step. It's so easy with any form of astrology or any technique to kind of just hit the chart and go splat, because you get overwhelmed with so much information because each one of these symbols is just chocked full of so much symbolism. So by using a step-by-step process, we can uncover clues of past life experience. And, reincarnation is one of the most common beliefs we find all over the world as to what goes on in the afterlife. And I won't say too much about it. I'll go on a tangent, but there's actually a lot of research and evidence that points that to actually be what happens, whether it's through the work of Michael Newton doing hypnosis work, where he in deep trance brought his clients into what he coined the life between lives, and thousands of people all describing the same place in more or less the same way. And then you have the work of I think his name is Ian Stevenson, where he studies children from all over the world that can remember their past lives and sometimes even speak ancient languages that are no longer spoken, pretty trippy stuff. And then there's, of course, all the near-death experiences. And I'm pretty much convinced in reincarnation, have been for quite some time. And that's one big reason why I chose to learn this style of astrology myself. The reincarnational model is very much baked into this approach known as evolutionary astrology. And the philosophy, sorry?
Oh, sorry. I was going to say that you did for me a past life reading, and I've had regressions. And I saw one specific life that also Madonna's reader. I used to be member of a place that Madonna's reader. She was basically a Kabbalist and psychic, and she also saw my past lifetime, and she described it exactly like what I saw in my past life regression. And you did a reading for me, but you never knew. I never told you my experience, and you described it. The story was, I was shattered. I cried. I was like, oh my God, how is that possible? How can he see this in my horoscope? So it was fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, little did you know, I actually know Madonna and her Kabbalah. So I actually talked to her first.
Look at me showing off. But you're even bigger show off.
I sleuthed you before. I was like, what? That's so interesting. Isn't that almost eerie? And that's when you hear the same information basically twice from two different independent sources. It's pretty compelling evidence. Here's these two people, both in the woo-woo in their own way, saying the same thing.
And you see it with your eyes when you regress. You experience it with your eyes. So it's 3 confirmations. Another regression plus a reading at different times. And you, years later, you said absolutely the same story as what I saw and what I was told.
Well, it must have happened then.
If not, it's a huge conspiracy.
What's going on here? And it, that's a lot. I mean, I do a lot of these readings pre-recorded now, but I used to do them live primarily. And it wasn't uncommon as I was doing the past life story for my client to interrupt me as I'm doing it and saying, wait, are you talking about my current life or the past life? Because history tends to repeat itself. I think it was Dalai Lama that said, if you want to understand your karma, understand your current circumstances. History repeats itself. It's like a skipping record. The habitual behavior, yes, but really the habitual emotion, carries through from the past life into the current life. And as souls, we pick to be born into certain environments that bring us down a particular path that resonates with what we experienced in the past life. Yeah.
And it's funny, I've seen many stories where people discovered when past life regression remembered their lifetime and started researching that person. They remembered name and everything, and they found pictures of that person. They were shocked. They looked almost identical. Many times even the physical appearance kind of changes slightly, but you carry so much of the same visual. That was so shocking for me when I saw it with the pictures and everything.
Yeah, I've had a similar experience in my own family lineage, like many lifetimes ago, or like my great grandfather or whatever. I saw a picture of him and we looked identical. And then I started to learn about his life, and it's like very similar to my karmic story and my birth chart. And it's just like, oh my God, maybe I've been, hanging on the same family tree branch for the last couple rodeos.
They say a lot of people come back to the same family. That's why when we have children and we teach them, we're preparing our future bodies. This is what esoteric sources say, that most people come back to the same lineage because to continue those gifts or those karmic lessons.
Yeah, I believe it. I saw it with my own eyes. I was like, wait, that's weird. Looks exactly like me.
What was his career? Do you remember? Did you understand?
Well, this is a little embarrassing, but I have deep slavery in my chart, but seems like perhaps slave owner or like on a plantation or something. So he was in the deep South, and I think he had like a plantation or something. So it fit with that energy. And the way my karmic story is told is that's the kind of circumstances, but the underlying tone is being stuck, like checkmated by family, raised into the family of the plantation owners. Like, this is your life. A lot of control, slave to family, also slavery in the mix too. So living around the time of the Civil War or something like that.
Oh, so who are you slaving over now? Who are you controlling in this lifetime?
Well, we don't want to talk about that. Yeah.
Very private. Okay, we're not gonna go there.
Yeah, luckily I evolved just a little bit. Yeah. But there was this feeling in me, young in life, of wanting to get away from family, like feeling like an alien in my own family, like I didn't fit in. And the day I turned 18, I was out of there, split.
Wow. Look at you all over the world now. Portugal, China, marrying women.
Covered some miles. Yeah. But then, and this is what we'll be talking a lot about, not only when we get to Kylie's chart, but during the webinar as well. It's like, why do we want to learn this other than, it's not meant to be some cool party trick, although it can include that. But it's like with evolutionary astrology, why I like it so much, I'm a bit biased, but I love it, is always asking that question, why? If we're always asking that very Sagittarian question of why, we're always digging deeper, It's like, daddy, why is the sky blue? Oh, because it, filters out the rays of the sun. Why? Oh, well, such and such. Why? And you can just ask why endlessly, and you end up on this big philosophical conversation eventually if the person keeps asking why. So why do you have the birth chart that you have in this lifetime? What is the purpose? And I call this the chart behind the chart. We can look at deeper layer of context. It's like, what happened to you in past life experience that's being recreated into the current life? And we're going to learn two things. Basically, what did it feel like to be you? And that's why we use the nodes of the moon specifically, because the moon represents heart, feeling. All the planets have nodes, but we're looking at the nodes of the moon here. So what did it feel like to be you in the past life? And what was it that you must have been learning in the past life? So connected with the whole belief system of reincarnation is that the purpose of life, this is another common philosophy we'll find, is that we're here to learn. Okay, bit of a kindergarten through 12th grade here on planet Earth. And being a 7th grader is no better than being a 2nd grader. It's just a different lesson plan. So what was your lesson plan? And then, of course, we're working with the same lesson plan in this lifetime, okay? So we didn't sprout angel wings and ascend. We came back, obviously we're still working on some curriculum, yeah. And we come back through the veil of amnesia. We become born again, but we forget where we came from. We forgot what we're being tested on, forgot our past lives. So we come back time and time again to take the test blind. And of course, that's by design. If we knew all the answers to the test going in, there wouldn't be much opportunity for growth. It'd be too easy. Now, by understanding the karma of your chart, you don't discover the answers of the test, of course. That would be cheating, okay? But you do get a peek at like the class syllabus or maybe some of the questions on the test. You get a sneak peek of what the lesson plan may be, which is very crucial information, because if we're here to learn, if you know what you're being tested on, it helps you to focus your conscious awareness on that so that you can put your personal growth and evolution into hyperdrive. Yeah. So very important information. And by learning the lessons, okay, you balance out the karma and you move on to the next lesson plan and you get an A+ on this incarnation, and graduate. So we might as well just streamline right into Kylie's chart. That's a good segue.
So you demonstrate basically what you teach people. And this is how Bryan also does a past life reading. If you're interested, it's $90 for a recording of the story of your past life. Oh my God, I'm going to mute myself. My voice is going off. So you carry on.
Okay. Yeah, you got a little frog in your throat or something.
Something
happens to the best of us. So yeah, I do offer the service too, but that's why I wanted to do the webinar, is to teach people how to do it themselves. And that's one more thing I wanted to say before I get to Kylie is, one beautiful outcome of this is not only learning about what we're learning, but it also helps us to have compassion for ourselves. It's like, that's why I've been struggling with what I've been struggling with this life. This is carryover. Have compassion for ourselves. Our own journey helps us to lighten up on ourselves. Especially develop compassion for our loved ones. If with their permission, if you get their birth chart information, you can say, I can, again, the chart behind the chart. So it helps us to develop compassion for our journeys. So let's develop some compassion for Miss Kylie Jenner.
She needs it a lot. She's the richest woman in the world. Who needs it more?
She probably doesn't need our compassion, but hey, compassion's good, spread the love. Yeah.
I think we should have done Donald Trump. Because who needs more compassion than him, to be honest.
Oh, yeah. There you go. I was afraid of like 800 thumbs downs on Donald Trump, so I didn't want to get political because everybody's got feelings about that. But again, yeah, it's like I came into this knowing nothing about Kylie. I actually had to like poke around on the net. My pop culture understanding is so limited, it's ridiculous. But yes, I did learn she's a very successful businesswoman, among other things. So first, we start off by looking at the south node of the moon. And let me share my screen here so you can see what I'm looking at. Can you see it there? Okay, great.
Yes, I see.
So does my cursor move on the screen too, by the way?
Yes.
Perfect. So I'm circling here on the second house. This is the south node of the moon. And south node represents past energy, in this case, past lives. Kind of a been there, done that feeling, habitual energy. So this will say a lot about her past life. And when analyzing the past life story, I just want to put this out here right away. We want to look at the symbolism a little bit more negatively, a little bit askance, just to see what went wrong for her. We'll talk about some of the positive and her natural skill sets and stuff as well, but I really want to focus on the stumbling blocks, okay? Because that'll give us some key information in terms of, in this life, what she needs to do to turn those stumbling blocks into stepping stones, okay? So South Node is in Pisces, as we see here, and it's in the second house of the chart. There'll be much more before we're done, but that's our starting line. So Pisces energy. The archetypes associated with Pisces is the mystic, the dreamer, and the poet. Yeah. It's a very imaginative sign, a very creative sign, also a very sensitive sign. It's a water sign. Water signs are innately emotional on the subjective plane. Yeah. So she was very watery, which is to say sensitive. But with Pisces specifically, we point our noses more in the direction of psychic sensitivity. And, she was probably the type of girl or guy, we don't know what sex she was in the last life. Okay. There is a lot of masculine energy in this nodal structure, so maybe she was a man in the past life, but we don't really know. But just imagine her as a young boy or girl, talking to nature spirits, talking to her imaginary friends. That's very Pisces as a youngster, because she's attuned to higher dimensions of reality. And with a Pisces South Node, this does suggest her opening psychically in the prior life, okay, probably at a young age. And there's nothing inherently wrong with that, but it can get us into trouble, of course. What happens if we open psychically faster than we can handle? Okay. Especially here on planet Earth, where there's a lot of pain and suffering. If you're psychically attuned to the pain of the world and you open psychically faster than you can handle, what can occur can be a desire to not feel so intensely. This is too much. Okay. I don't want to feel this anymore. And we begin to numb ourselves. We begin to check out of reality. We begin to escape any way we can. So put a word out here, broadly speaking, for her in the past life, addiction. Okay. Now, addiction to what? That's what we don't know yet. We got to add the window dressing. And by the way, this is meant to be semi-fictional. I'm telling you a true story about Kylie's past life, but I'm making up all the facts. This is a parable that parallels past life experience. Again, to discover what it felt like to be her and what it was she must have been learning. So we're going to take a look at a fairly complex set of symbols here, find out where the symbols overlap in meaning, creating themes, and then paste a semi-fictional storyline onto that archetypal matrix or framework. So here's our first clue, Pisces. And the shadow side of addiction, but now we recognize, okay, it's not just addiction. Where does the addiction come from? There's that key question. Why? Why? Because of her hypersensitivity. Now, second house, traditionally known as the house of money. Okay, that just leaps right out. Okay, so we could be looking at money stuff here, which, hey, she's definitely working on that level in this life. Okay. And when we think about money, it's like in the past life, the immediate question in my mind is, well, was it a little money or a lot of money? Because those are two different pathways that offer different complications and learning curves. But in terms of a lot of money, okay, people will often pay way too much for their money. Okay, they'll pay with their own individuality or freedom for the sake of financial security or afraid to break out of the pattern of going towards money, maybe being addicted to money, since we're kind of going to connect these symbols here. Okay. So that's the more outward expression of the second house. The more, excuse me, I think I caught something from Lada through the.
The virus.
Yeah, I think your frog leapt into my throat. Okay. So outward security, okay, net worth, inward security, self-worth, and they affect each other. So a lot of money or a little money, fine. We don't know yet. We will know, but that's just on the outside. The inside, bottom line, in her past life, insecurity prevented her from becoming what she needed to become to the degree she could have become it. Yeah. Now, to gain more insight, we want to look to the planets that rule Pisces. There are two. There's a more modern rulership of Neptune, and there's a more classical rulership of Jupiter. We see here Neptune's in the first house in Capricorn, and then we have Jupiter in Aquarius, and it looks as though it's in the first house, but since it's so close to the cusp of the second house, I'm actually going to consider it a second house Jupiter, effectively.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, it's right.
Yeah, and we'll just start with the Jupiter since it's in the same home turf as the South Node, second house. Jupiter, the king of the gods, the planet of luck and expansion. Power, honor, glory, and riches will be yours. That's the fortune teller line with Jupiter, especially in the second house. Yeah. So was it a big pile of cash or a little pile of cash? Or in the bread line? No, it was a big pile of cash. Okay.
Wow. Yeah. So she learned how to do that in a past lifetime.
This is not something she showed up in this lifetime and think, I think I'll try to make a lot of money this time. This is like baked into her consciousness, her ability to just manifest things. Think about Pisces in the second house. What I think of, at least on a high level, is prosperity consciousness, being able to manifest, in this case, money. Yeah. But the root drive for her to want to manifest a lot of money, again, insecurity because of her hyperactive psychic sensitivity. So she found ways to numb herself, to feel more comfortable, to feel more secure, which is a second house function, house of security. Okay. So it became a borderline addiction for her. That's why she got so good at it. Wow. It helped her to feel more secure in a world that probably felt very insecure. And I'll get to Aquarius in a second here, but let's get over here to this Neptune in Capricorn in the first house. Yeah. First house, house of leadership, okay? House of prominence, the idea that she didn't really have equals around her. Others were children relative to her or him. Again, we don't know what sex she was. Okay? Probably in a position of great responsibility, needing to make choices for people. Okay? Deeply independent symbolism here. First house, leadership, independence. It's in the sign, Neptune's in the sign of Capricorn here, the sign of the hermit, of the sign of self-sufficiency. It's also a very business-oriented sign, a very practical, kind of shrewd businessman energy, but leadership energy. Yeah. But circling back to that core question, the hub of the wheel of this reading is, what did it feel like to be her? Well, Capricorn, on one level, at least the shadow side, can be pretty controlling. Okay, so maybe some control issues. But we're probably looking at a little bit of depression here too, linked to Capricorn, because there is this sense of loneliness associated with Capricorn. Okay, and the phrase that comes to my mind, very common when I see Capricorn first house energy, I think I talked about it in our Capricorn May video that we just did a couple weeks ago, but it's lonely at the top. Others were children relative to her, probably both literally and figuratively, didn't have equals around her. She was the successful power person, major manifester. And Jupiter in Aquarius, the sign of the rebel energy, the revolutionary. Uranus is in the mix here too. It's kind of sandwiched in between Neptune and Jupiter. That's playing a role. Uranus rules Aquarius, so it's in its own sign. So it's almost like we got 3 votes for Aquarius here in a way. Now, what does it feel like to be an Aquarius? Alienating. Like you don't fit in with the group. Okay. Now imagine if you're super, super successful, one of the 1% or 0.01% of the human population in terms of monetary wealth. Can that be pretty alienating? Can that be pretty lonely? Well, I wouldn't know. That's for damn sure.
That's why no compassion. I'm kidding.
But I can, it's easy to imagine, It's like you read about Aquarius online. It's like, oh, you're an Aquarius. You must have a million friends, but don't try to get too close to an Aquarius, or you'll just feel like you hit a wall of glass. You'll feel this certain distance, aloofness, detachment. And that's just shadow side Aquarius. And that's a big subject, and there's a reason for that too. But people getting in close to her, there seems to be a distancing here. Okay, emotional distancing. That's kind of the combination, the play of Capricorn and Aquarius here. Okay. Lonely at the top, alienating at the top, creating a certain detachment, especially emotional detachment. As she focused on the things that made her feel better, medicated herself through prosperity, Now,
Wow,
the
it
plot
seems
thickens.
it's running this life as well. I think she's repeating it exactly word for word.
Yeah, so far, what's interesting here, and I think I said this to you before we were recording, is we're going to be juggling a lot of planets here as it connects to her karma. Because as we notice, and this is actually a good segue to where I was headed anyways, we got 10 things we're calling planets here. I think 8 of them, 1, 2, 3, 8 of them are tied into this story. 8 of the 10 planets. So her chart is like 80% deeply tied up in her karma, because the moon is square the Jupiter. You have the Mars here square the Neptune. You have the sun opposite the Jupiter. Okay. You have Venus and Mercury opposite the South Node. That's where it's really going to get interesting. Okay. But it's been my observation that the more planets involved in the nodal structure, almost the repeat is stronger. The soul echo, the soul reverberation seems to be even more literal. It's usually, very symbolic, and even in your case, Lada, when we were doing your past story, you could see how it deeply resonated with, you could see the threads that connect from this life to that life. So, yeah, so far it seems eerily the same. And the moon and Mars square the 2 rulers here. You notice that the moon's in the 10th house, moon's in the 10th house in Scorpio, and Mars is in Libra on the midheaven.
Yeah.
The midheaven being the most charged part of the 10th house. It's just the beginning of the 10th house. And this is the classic signature of fame. Not everybody with planets in the 10th house are famous, but they're usually well known at the very least by their community, involved in their community. So, was she famous in her city, her state, her country, or the world? We don't know, but she was defined by her public role, widely recognized. And since this is so similar to her past life experience, this one, we can probably, reverse engineer and think she probably was pretty famous again. Okay.
She likes it though. It squares to the rulers of the
She like it though. Yeah, that's where we're going.
Sorry, I'm muting myself. My big
no,
mouth.
please, no. I like the interruptions. It's good. We're bouncing off each other. This is perfect, because you're like the leading question exactly where we're headed. So we're jiving on the same signal. So yeah, squares, at least on the nodal structure, past life story, represent what was at cross purposes with her, what was vexing her in the last life. So this fame was at cross purposes with her. Famous as what? Well, somebody who's very successful, but now we need to add the chili powder that is Mars, the war god. You know, recognized by swaths of people as being very martial. This is why I think she was a man in a previous life, actually.
Yeah.
But there's a hotness with this. You know, Mars, the war god, divine masculine in the sign of Libra, the lover, kind of a sexy placement for Mars. Okay. And the moon in Scorpio, Scorpio is known as the sexiest sign in the zodiac, you know. And her heart was very visible on the public stage, which I haven't seen any of her TV work, but if you're on a reality TV show, I would imagine your heart's pretty visible. You know, they don't bring, you know, people who are completely closed off on those shows typically. But why was it vexing her? Okay, besides just the intensity of being in the public eye, I'm sure, gosh, again, I wouldn't know, but you know, that to that degree must be pretty intense. Scorpio can be very intense. But the thing with being famous is people are constantly projecting onto you. You know, if I were to mention a name we'd both recognize. Like who, you know, whatever, Donald Trump. Hey, he seems to be on the agenda today. It's like he becomes a character that we feel we know,
Yeah.
you know, without actually knowing him. We might have a pretty good idea, but you know, we're still projecting an image onto him. You know, becomes a character that we feel we know without actually knowing them. And her, that being at cross purposes with her, projected an image onto her or him, whatever she was, as what? Well, Mars in Scorpio, sexy. The sex symbol, you know, maybe, you know, she was a male model or something like that. I don't know. Libra is the sign of the artist. But the words I keep coming back to in terms of projections from the public eye is sex symbol. Okay. Now, the sun is in Leo. Okay. This adds a certain element of performance to the mix. But it's in an opposition to the Jupiter. And oppositions is the brick wall of reality she couldn't really get around. You know, oppositions have a few different meanings, and that's one of the main ones. And her brick wall that she couldn't get around was some of the shadow side of the sun can be a bit egoic. You know, some of the ego attachments that come along with that sort of lavish lifestyle. You know, all that glitters is not gold. But, you know, she thought it was gold. She went for it. So we're looking at prestige here, you know, Leo, sun in Leo, sun in its own sign of Leo. But this creating some sort of psychopathology within her because it's in the 8th house, okay, of our own traumas, psychological traumas as well as emotional traumas. This could be also a vote for some narcissism as well. Sun in Leo in the 8th house opposite the ruler. Now, this is really where the rubber meets the road, because Venus and Mercury in Virgo in the 8th house opposite the south node. And this is where, you know, I just said oppositions was the brick wall of reality she couldn't get around. In this case, what it means is what felt farthest from her, what felt unattainable. And what do we have here? Venus, the goddess of love and intimacy. In the 8th house of, yes, of our own wounding, as I just said, very psychological inward house, but it's also the house of deep bonding, the mystery of the couple. There's going to be a lot of things to say about that when I get to the north node of the moon, her karmic medicine. But with Venus in the 8th house, I'm looking squarely at relationship. What was farthest from her? Right?
Love.
Now, why? There's that question again. Well, we circle right back to the beginning, second house. Insecurity prevented her from becoming what she needed to become, or preventing her from learning what she needed to learn. So there was a missing ingredient in her past life of acing this relationship thing. Now, probably none of us really ace the relationship thing. It's pretty complex. But this, again, was farthest from her. I'm not saying she was single her entire life. But if you're in a relationship and every time the person gets close, they hit that wall of glass, okay? So interesting, because it feels like her heart was so visible to the public, but she didn't let anybody into her heart in the most vulnerable places, in her deeply bonded eighth house relationships, okay? So could be also a sense of requited love here too, but insecurity. Now, the Virgo is kind of a perfectionist energy. Okay, it wants something perfect. So she wanted this perfect love, you know, this fantasy love that may very well exist if you're in a place and you're ready for it, a place of evolution, to where you're ready for it. When you overcome your own insecurities to find that that soulmate. So it feels like her soulmate was blocked from her. She wasn't able to get over the hump. Okay, and the perfectionist energy of Virgo, this is what I am, this is what I should be, oh no, can lead to self-doubt. And that's the overlap between Virgo and the second house. Too much self-doubt. And undercutting her own value in the relationship department. Now, I said at the very beginning, or towards the beginning, we're in a bit of a kindergarten through 12th grade here on planet Earth. Now, if you're a ninth grader, so to speak, you should partner with a ninth grader, meet you on the same level so you can dive deeply together. But if you're a ninth grader who's with the seventh grader, there's going to be part of you that's never reached. It's safe, okay? You're not challenged. You're not growing.
Mm-hmm.
But what if you're a ninth grader who thinks you're a seventh grader? And you're always partnering with those seventh graders, even though you're really in the ninth grade. There's that self-questioning energy, not valuing her own worth in the past life.
Oh my God.
And never finding that true love. Now, I don't know what her love life is like in this life. I have no idea.
Complex.
But
She's with the rapper. I think he cheated on her. That's all I know.
yeah, so it was probably pretty eighth house and stormy. It can be pretty dramatic. So that's the main karmic signature I'm looking at here, and this is where we get to the most meaningful part. It's like, how does she grow past it? How does she evolve? And that's when you look to the karmic medicine, the north node of the moon. And the north node of the moon is really nothing but a good idea. It's up here, by the way, this horseshoe shape up here. And it's nothing but a good idea. Most people never reach it because it's, opposite from where we've come from. It feels unattainable. It feels foreign in every sense. We suck at it, So therefore it takes relentless effort and force of will and consistency to reach it. It's a hard point in the chart, but rest assured, if you master your north node, you are getting that A+ in this incarnation. So she's coming back in this life to get back on the horse that threw her, this relationship stuff, okay? And, north node's not easy work. So if it's been pretty tumultuous, it makes sense, especially she's pretty young too, right?
A child is called Stormy, and they split. They were together for a year or two. They had a child. He cheated on her, and even the child is called Stormy. It's crazy.
Interesting. Yeah, and eighth house is linked to those stormy emotions of, jealousy and betrayal and obsessiveness and stuff like that. That's the shadow side of the eighth house. But what she's striving for is the highest octave expression of the eighth house.
Deep in.
And yeah. And, by putting her Venus and her Mercury conjunct the North Node, the hardest place on her entire chart. Therefore, it's hard for her to reach that. She came in playing for high stakes in this lifetime. She put a lot of eggs in one basket. She said, if I do not lick this relationship, this time around, I will not evolve. High stakes. So Venus, finding relationships, high-end Venus, finding relationships built on equality, where you're a ninth grader who's actually with a ninth grader. And the type of relationships that are really good for her are ones where it's very deep and psychological. Eighth house, the house of deep bonding. And of course, you're likely to trigger each other. You know, anybody who sleeps together for a few weekends in a row, your stuff starts to come up, you start to press each other's buttons, okay? She's learning how to deal with that more evolved, more constructively, more therapeutically. Her soul family partnerships will feel like psychotherapy, where they support each other in this healing journey, and they'll come into the relationship. Of course you have a shadow. Of course I have a shadow. You know, let's work through it. Let's grow our bonds deeper through our joined union of healing together. That's what I mean by her relationship feeling like psychotherapy. Built on open and honest communication. That's the Mercury piece, the planet of communication. So communication has to be the absolute foundation of any healthy long-term soul family relationship for her. This includes her best friends as well. But it's also key that she finds somebody that she's with where she feels heard. You know, that's really the key takeaway, where she feels heard. So if she goes on this tangent, this eighth house tangent, sharing her feelings, the dishes are flying, the forks are embedded in the wall, you know, triggered, in other words. If immediately the guy or girl, I don't know what team she's batting for. Oh, you did say she was with a guy. So if the guy says, yes, but the yes butters of the world are no good for her. Okay. Because if somebody says yes, but, it's as if the yes doesn't matter. They've already collected their position papers in their mind and ready to throw other plates, you know? So she needs to feel heard and honored and connect with emotionally and process. She needs people she can process with. Now, this can devolve, this sort of eighth house Virgoan dynamic can devolve into being snippy. You know, that's Virgo energy can be pretty judgmental in that way. Virgo is a beautiful sign. But if you look at that imagery of the perfectionist, okay, or the virgin archetype, this is what I am, this is what I should be. Virgo people are very hard on themselves. And that can be, this is a shadow side, can be projected outwardly to be picky towards other people, okay? So if the Virgo is manifested in a less healthy way within the relationship through this emotional process, there'll be a bicker war, you know? So high in Virgo, what she's striving for ultimately is a type of relationship where the relationship feels like work. Now, of course, work and love, that doesn't sound so sexy. But a labor of love. Striving as a couple to be impeccable, but also coupled with the realization that we're these imperfect humans with these flawed personalities, which are very, you know, susceptible to all kinds of wounding and misinterpretations, okay? Obscuring our lifelight, our soul. And our growth is cleaning up our personalities in a lot of ways. And she's attempting to do that in this life through very specific relationships, okay? Where we're striving for that perfect couple, that perfect image, but also recognizing that that's an impossible standard, but it's still a good thing to aim for, to shoot for, so you continually evolve together, okay? And it may take her some time to find somebody like that, because again, she's pretty young. And again, the North Node is not easy work, okay? I would be surprised if she really got there pre-Saturn return, you know? Yeah. But, you know, this is tricky because, you know, I certainly don't know her love life. I don't know how public she is with that, although, other than knowing about the breakup and cheating and stuff. But, that's the deep evolutionary work for her in this lifetime. The recreation of in this life of what she had in the last life, all the fame, all the prestige, all the money, all the probably she has recreated the loneliness and alienation,
Mm.
Can you imagine having that much success and money, how hard it would be to have like a true eighth house Virgoan love, where you're worried about, are they on the same monetary level? It's so complex. I can't even imagine what that's like, but it's got to be alienating. There's probably in your, at least how they feel in their minds is there's very few people that they can partner with, almost like they have to partner with people who get their own joke, get the joke, or they know what it's like of being at that level of exposure, I don't know. Anyways, I'm just kind of rambling here,
No, no,
but
absolutely. I
yeah,
feel no compassion for her. You're right.
well,
It's
that's the goal,
oh, wow.
and yeah, and this is why it's such a good skill to have, you know, not only for your own journey, but it's like even in when I do relationship readings, don't do them too often anymore, but I used to. And, that was one of my favorite things about sitting with a couple. Obviously they come to me when they need to. So there's some stuff going on, such as life. But generally, they would leave my office holding hands, even if they came in fuming. It's because it's like, oh, you're so different than me. It's like, duh. We're all going on our own paths. We all have our own lessons. We all have our own hangups. And through the birth chart, through the karmic signature, we can get a feeling for what did it feel like to be you in the last life? And how is that being recreated in the current life? What are you here to learn? Now that I know that, how can I help you learn to what it is you're supposed to learn? So it's, in my opinion, I think it's just priceless information.
I think
And I'm
it's
very
the
excited to
noble
teach
part.
this week.
Yeah. That's
What's
like the
that?
noble part of astrology. Wow.
Yeah.
Compared to what we do sometimes. Oh, how much money will I have? All those mundane questions, but that
That's
touches.
part of astrology too, this is just another slant, so yeah.
Thank you so much, Brian. If you'd like to learn how to do this beautiful story weaving and have compassion for your human beings and for yourself, it's hardest to forgive ourselves usually. Then come and join Brian on the 16th, or if you can be present, you can watch it after that. You own it. You have this recording forever. It's a 4-hour webinar on how to read the past lives, or you can order a personal reading with Brian on your past life story. And I'll put links for those below this video if you're interested. Thank you so much, Brian.
Thanks, Lada.
Have a great day.
You too.